Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Ernest Hemingway's classic novel, The Sun Also Rises. I'll go briefly into the author's background, give a brief spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, and we'll finish off with what I will be reading for next time. Ernest Hemingway is maybe the most famous author of the 20th century. In terms of just being a celebrity. He wrote this along with The Old Man in the Sea, For Whom the Bell Tolls, A Farewell to Arms, or just kind of some of his most well-known novels. He's mostly also famous for just kind of being a raconteur of traveling all over the world and writing about his experiences basically everywhere. So there's definitely a lot of his real-world life that has gone into many of his books. Before this, The Sun Also Rises, I read The Old Man in the Sea, probably in high school. I don't think I've read anything else of his stuff that I can recall. He's probably also known for being around the same generation contemporaries with F. Scott Fitzgerald. So that's Ernest Hemingway. If you don't know more about his life, there's been several books written about him, biographies. He's just a very kind of well known for a series of different things. This book, The Sun Also Rises, is set between World War I and World War II. I believe it's set in the 1920s, mostly in Paris, France, as well as in Spain, mostly with the running of the bulls in Spain. I'll kind of talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the book concerns expatriates, American expatriates who are living in Paris. There's a small circle of friends of about 5 main characters. The book centers around the character of Jake, who is a journalist, and his group of friends. He's kind of the main character that we follow. He also is friends with a boxer whose last name is Coyne, and Robert Coyne, I believe is his name. He also has a fellow named Bill and Brett, who is engaged to be married to Mike. And the 5 of them kind of travel together. They communicate via telegraph and phone calls and letters, but the book really centers around Jake's living in Paris and his travels to I believe it's Pamplona, Spain, to see the running of the bulls. And the book is really mostly focused on that trip from him. His going from Paris to Spain with this group, and kind of the inner party relationships of each of the group. So it's really hard to read the book and not really be taken aback at Hemingway's ability to describe a place and really make you feel like you're kind of walking down the street with him. I think the book in some ways is I felt split into not 2 halves in the sense of chronologically one half and another half, but half the book definitely felt like more of what I would call travel writing. It's basically people going to places and experiencing the things of these places. And the other half is really more of the interpersonal relationships of these 5 characters. As far as what I really enjoyed his going and describing not only traveling to Spain, but the different hotels that they stop at along the way. His description of the land. There's a small portion of the book where he's going fishing that I thought was really good. I think he also describes just kind of the fiesta-like atmosphere of Spain during the running of the bulls. I think that's captured really, really well. I think he writes in a style that is sparse, but still gives you enough detail most of the time so you can really follow and understand what's happening and what's going on. So I enjoyed his use of language. I don't think there's a lot of extras. There's not a lot of purple prose. So you can really give this to someone and have them read it relatively quickly. So his descriptions of Paris and his descriptions of Spain specifically, I really, really enjoyed. As far as some things that I didn't enjoy, and also there's a plot that involves bullfighting and the running of the bulls, and that description of those scenes were really, really strong. So as far as the things I didn't enjoy, though a lot of times the book is told through dialogue, and sometimes it's difficult to follow who is speaking. The plot of the book itself is not particularly interesting. It's really just kind of it feels almost like the documentation of a trip that these characters have, and I just didn't feel particularly invested. I don't know if Hemingway, and from what I've read, some of this is kind of based on his circle of friends, or some of the people are based on his circle of friends. The characters themselves I didn't find particularly likable. They are interesting in the sense that they're doing interesting stuff, but as far as the characters themselves, I think there is a lot there to make you kind of dislike them. They seem to, while they are on holiday, and that may be part of it, they seem to just spend money with abandon. They seem to be drinking basically on every page of every chapter. They have some behavior that is kind of less than honorable. So in some ways, it's kind of hard to sympathize with them in their plight. There's the whole inter-party relationship. I've heard people describe this book as a love triangle, and I can kind of see where that description comes from. I didn't find particularly interesting. I didn't really find myself wanting any of these characters really to find any kind of stability or happiness. So I thought that part of the book, I don't want to call it the soap opera part, but more of the soap opera part, less interesting than the kind of almost the travel writing part. And it's really hard for you to split the book. You can't really take what you want and leave the parts that you don't want very easily, because like I said, it's not really done in sections. But if I was to pull Hemingway's writing and give them to someone and just say, here, this is what I like about his writing, to me, the description of the fishing trip was really, I thought, a good piece of just really clean, simple writing, but also very evocative and interesting at the same time. So that's really The Sun Also Rises. I'm going to leave a link in the comments below to my video that I reviewed for A Day of the Locust, because I think that the audiences for these two books are going to be pretty similar, and I could see how someone would want to compare the two of them together. I do wish that there was more historical context to the book. The book feels very much in a book that was written for the times, and so I felt sometimes that I was missing some of the context from the world at large, so I didn't really know some of the people who were being referenced, and that made it hard to follow sometimes. Some of the slang I didn't really understand. The word tight I had to look up of what it meant. There are some ethnic and racial slurs in the book that people may have a hard time relating to or accepting. But this is the book that kind of put his stamp on the world. This is kind of his first big novel. So for that reason alone, I would say if you are a fan of Hemingway, maybe check it out. It's a pretty quick read. I think my book is only less than 200 pages, so I think it's worth reading alone just for kind of the travelogue stuff, because I think he does have a unique handling of the language that you can kind of see other authors who have been influenced by him since. And it's good sometimes to see where that kind of style comes from. So that is The Sun Also Rises. Next time I'm going to be reading Dennis Lehane, Since We Fell. Until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter. I'll have my Twitter handle in the description below. Until next time, bye.